bone and sickle, bleeding saints and forest witches, the past unburied, the books unsealed, the old celebration returning.
Hello, and welcome to my study. Please come in and have a seat. All the books surrounding you are those used to research our show, and the individual to my right here, along with managing domestic duties, serves as our reader for any passages that will be directly quoted from these sources. Her name is Mrs. Carswell.
Hello, and Happy New Year.
Yes, a belated Happy New Year to you all.
Better late than never.
I hope so. So, one of my hopes for 2026 is to see more of our listeners enjoying the rewards we offer via Patreon, and to that end, I've put together a sort of sweepstakes. Every new member signing up between now and the last day of February will be entered.
That's February 28th. Remember, there are only 28 days in February.
So you'd have to sign up before March 1st.
That's another way to put it.
And to be eligible, you have to sign up on an annual rather than month-to-month basis.
Which is cheaper in the long run.
Right, you pay 15% less per month. Anyway, all the new signups will be entered in the sweepstakes for a set of 3 lovingly restored folk horror films on Blu-ray provided by Deaf Crocodile. They're a art house distributor, with which I've had some dealings, and from their lovely catalog, I've selected 3 favorites that should align nicely with the interests of Bone and Sickle listeners, 2 Eastern European films, and 1 Irish production. They've all been extremely hard to find in the past.
And you wanted to mention that they're deluxe editions.
2 of them, yes, with all the bells and whistles, additional shorts by the film's directors, interviews, and video essays by film historians, original slipcase artwork, all that sort of thing. And it's about a $90 value you'd be getting. So let's hear those film descriptions you have.
First, there's the Savage Hunt of King Stock.
And Savage Hunt here would be just another translation for the term Wild Hunt, the folklore motif you've heard more than enough about in the show, or if you read my books about winter mythology. Sorry, go ahead.
It's from 1980, from Belarus.
With subtitles, naturally.
And it says, a scholar of folklore arrives at the ancient estate of Marsh Fears to research the bloody legend of King Stock, a murdered 15th century nobleman whose spirit supposedly thunders through the local woodlands. The longer the young scholar stays in this mysterious castle, the more strange and surreal the imagery becomes. A mad widow in a white wig, a man bleeding spontaneously from his skull, a dwarf hiding in a decayed doll's house, screeching ravens and maniacal puppet shows.
And I'll have a link to the video in our show notes, by the way. So what's the next one?
The Golden Fern, a breathtaking black and white fairy tale, is one of the most unjustly neglected treasures of 1960s fantasy filmmaking. A handsome young shepherd stumbles across a magical golden fern in the forest. A stunning, enigmatic forest fairy named Lasanga is sent to retrieve it, but instead falls hopelessly in love with him.
Yeah, that one's really gorgeous. Reminded me of that Estonian film, November, that came out a few years ago, another beautifully black and white fairy tale film. And the third one.
From Ireland, made in 1982, it's The Outcasts. It tells the story of Maura, the odd, intense daughter of an impoverished rural family in early 1800s Ireland, who's accused of witchcraft after she's been seen consorting in the woods with a conjurer and a fiddle player dressed as a wren boy.
No, that's a type of mummer dressed in a straw suit.
Her neighbors and even her own family become increasingly consumed by fear and superstition as Maura starts to experience surreal, poetic flashes of her latent powers.
Well, there you go. Hours of great folk horror viewing. One more caveat. Unfortunately, the films can only be shipped to the U.S. in Canada, so apologies to our listeners abroad.
And even if you don't win the films, you'll be getting the Bone and Sickle Patreon rewards.
True, and that could be anything from blog access, so you can peruse the hundreds of posts made over the years, or the downloadable show scripts and soundscapes.
Or the stuff we have to mail out, your signed books, T-shirts, mugs, or the mystery boxes.
Yes, those are collections of odd ephemera and little antique bits and pieces I put together myself.
Don't forget the bonus episodes.
It's our most popular tier. These are like the regular shows, only shorter. And when you sign up for those or any of the digital downloads, you can access the whole back catalog of extra content we've been creating since 2018. So I think that's something like 70 or 80 hours of extra bonus listening. Okay, well, I think that's good for the giveaway announcement. You can find all this and links to the films on our website. You can go to the dedicated page. It's at boneandsickle.com/giveaway, boneandsickle.com/giveaway, or just check the show notes.
Good luck to everyone out there.
Okay, so I guess that's it, unless you have anything else.
No, but aren't we going to talk about anything going on here?
I think we can just start the show.
Not even a little bit of banter and bickering?
Bickering?
Or subtle sniping?
What?
I think it's expected.
No. I see what you're doing.
Do you?
You're never mind. Anyway, this is episode 153, Rhymes for Those Who Can Neither Read Nor Run.
All of you boys and girls have no doubt heard the deep, throaty croak of a great big old bullfrog. Or maybe a little bitty frog.
Have you? And what would that have to do with rhymes for those who cannot read or run? What does that mean anyway? In this case, rhymes for very young children, for toddlers. Nursery rhymes. In this episode, we're going to look at one of the earliest collections of children's verses. Published in 1784, it's called Gammer Gurton's Garland. Into the 19th century, the term Garland was used to describe a collection of short writings or poems. The term was inherited from the Greek poet Meleager, who titled an anthology of his poems, The Garland, in the 1st century BC. A century later, the Latin florilegium, literally flower arrangement, was being used to describe collections of short sayings by the early church fathers, artfully arranged like a garland or flower arrangement. Well, that's rather heady stuff for kids who can't read, I suppose. And who is Gammer Gurton? Well, she's a fictional character, like Mother Goose. Gammer is an archaic version of Grandma or Granny, and Grandmother Gurton was a sort of stock character known to British audiences since the 16th century. It comes from one of the earliest English comedies, Gammer Gurton's Needle, an Elizabethan farce about a lost needle and the absurd squabbles it produces. Like Mother Goose, the character of Gammer Gurton was later appropriated by other authors to name their collections of nursery rhymes. Then there's the subtitle of the book,
The Nursery Parnassus, a choice collection of pretty songs and verses for the amusement of all little good children who can neither read nor run.
And so one last bit of decoding. Mount Parnassus was the home of Apollo, the Muses, and nymphs, and as such was often employed to designate a center or collection of artistic endeavors, as I'm sure the toddlers appreciated. But what about the frogs?
This is a story of a middle-sized frog. A froggy that went a-courtin'. Froggy went a-courtin' and he did ride 'em.
The ballad, Froggy Went a Courtin', known in the U.S. as an old-timey Southern song, has roots in the Scottish and English heritage of Appalachia and happens to appear in Gammer Gurton's 1784 collection. The version we're hearing was sung by Tex Ritter. Ritter, who made a name for himself in film and radio as a singing cowboy of the 30s and 40s, along the way he released collections of children's songs. In his intro to the song, Ritter says,
"In every state in the South, you could find versions of this song sung to children for the past 100 or so years."
That's actually much older than that, as we know from its inclusion in Gammer Gurton's. But even before 1784, allusions to an odd story of a frog courting a mouse had appeared. By 1611, complete lyrics and musical accompaniment were recorded by Thomas Ravenscroft, a musician famous as the composer of rounds and an early collector of folk music. You can hear a bit of his piece, The Marriage of the Frog and the Mouse, now.
The frog would a wooing right, humble down, sword and buckler by his side, tweedle, tweedle, twine.
And that's by a Chicago-based choral group, Journey Through Time, by the way. Ravenscroft referred to his frog and mouse piece as a country pastime, meaning a folk song, meaning it wasn't something he composed in 1611. It had already been circulating among these country people for who knows how long. His version of the story is quite elaborate, moving beyond courtship to the marriage, detailing the wedding feast and wedding guests, bees and ducks, etc., and is made longer by the inclusion of repeated lines and nonsense syllables, rhythmic fillers, the diddly-dee and tra-la, often found in British folk songs. Some of the wedding details survive in certain modern renderings of this song, but the nonsense syllables vary widely. Tex Ritter, for instance, fills the gaps with
Kimi in the land of Pharaoh, come a rat trap, penny winkle, Tommy doodle, rattle, bugger, rat trap, penny, won't you Kimi-o?
And King Kong makes his way into other versions, at least in the nonsense syllables employed in the 1925 version recorded by Chubby Parker.
Frog went a-courtin' and he did ride. King Kong, kitty, kitty, cry-me-o, with a sword and a pistol by his side. King Kong, kitty, kitty, cry-me-o.
The version in Gammer Gurton's, when compared to Ravenscroft's, is much more spare, particularly when all those repetitions and filler syllables are removed, as we'll do in the version Mrs. Carswell will read.
There was a frog lived in a well, and a merry mouse in a mill. This frog he would a wooing ride, and on a snail he got astride. He rode till he came to my Lady Mouse Hall, and there he did both knock and call. Quoth he, Miss Mouse, I come to thee, to see if thou can fancy me. Quoth she, answer I'll give you none. And when her Uncle Rat came home, who's been here since I've been gone? Sir, there's been a worthy gentleman that's been here since you've been gone. The frog he came whistling through the brook, and there he met with a dainty duck. The duck she swallowed him up with a pluck. So there's an end of my history book.
So, no wedding guests or feast, unless you count the duck feasting on the poor little lovelorn frog. Like many of the poems in Gammer Gurton's, it's weirdly abrupt and a bit, well, cruel. These little brutal touches and surreal flourishes, I'll admit, is why I've chosen Gammer Gurton's Garland as the nursery collection to showcase. Outside of any quirky or unsettling aspects, Gammer Gurton's Garland is noteworthy as one of the earliest collections of English nursery rhymes. However, it was preceded in 1744 by
Tommy Thumb's songbook for all little masters and misses, to be sung to them by their nurses, till they can sing themselves.
And
Tommy Thumb's pretty songbook for all little masters and misses,
which was published later that same year. And there was also the first Mother Goose book,
Mother Goose's Melody, or Sonnets for the Cradle,
which is generally said to have been published 4 years prior to Gammer Gurton's, though there is some disagreement on that date. Joseph Ritson, the compiler of Gammer Gurtons, borrowed quite a few rhymes from these earlier volumes that also included a number of poems never before documented, including Goosey Goosey Gander and Ride a Cock Horse to Banbury Cross, with the rings on her fingers and bells on her toes lady. He was also the first to collect this one, which will soon be seasonal.
The Valentine. The rose is red, the violet's blue, the honey sweet, and so are you. Thou art my love, and I am thine. I drew thee to my Valentine. The lot was cast, and then I drew, and fortune said it should be you.
Ritson also printed the first known version of Bye Bye Baby Bunting and of There Was an Old Woman Who Lived in a Shoe. You know the rhyme.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread, then whipped them all soundly and put them to bed.
But Ritson's version was a bit cruder. It ends,
She whipped all their bums and sent them to bed.
The colorful compiler of the Nursery Parnassus is himself worth a few comments. A colleague of the novelist and collector of folk ballads Sir Walter Scott, Ritson is best known for his 1795 anthology,
Robin Hood, a collection of all the ancient poems, songs, and ballads, now extant relative to that celebrated English outlaw, to which are prefixed historical anecdotes of his life.
As for his eccentricity, Robert Chambers, in his 1864 book, The Book of Days, Volume 2, writes,
The peculiar tastes and pursuits of the antiquary frequently give him a strong individuality, which, with a little exaggeration, may produce caricature. He seldom appears in the pages of the novelist or dramatist in other than a ridiculous light, being depicted generally either as a foolish collector of despicable trifles or a half-witted, good-natured twaddler.
But he was nonetheless a meticulous scholar. Chambers continues,
He was too painstaking and accurate for general appreciation, and the public could read easier the books of looser compilation.
noting that,
In his last days, he naturally became more irritable than ever.
and Sir Walter Scott observed,
He had an honesty of principle about him which, if it went to ridiculous extremities, was still respectable from the soundness of the foundation. I don't believe the world could have made Ritson say the thing he did not think.
Contributing to his general crankiness was his position as an avowed atheist, which somehow was intertwined with his vegetarianism, a practice he'd embraced at the age of 19. Percy Shelley was impressed by his writings on the subject, which were echoed in his own A Vindication of Natural Diet. However, Ritson's nephew, tenant, and occasional editor, Joseph Frank, was less impressed, and for refusing to embrace vegetarianism, he was driven from Ritson's house. Somewhat unsurprisingly, it didn't end well for Ritson, as we hear in the 1855 Dictionary of National Biography published by Oxford.
After some months' incessant work, Ritson's brain completely gave way. Barricading himself within his chambers at Gray's Inn early in September 1803, he threatened with violence all who approached him. On 10 September, he set fire to masses of manuscripts, including a valuable catalogue of romances, and the steward of Gray's Inn broke into his rooms in fear that he would burn the house down. To a neighbor and a bencher of the inn, Robert Smith, he explained, when challenged to account for his conduct, that he was then writing a pamphlet proving Jesus Christ an impostor. A few days later, he was removed to the house of Sir Jonathan Miles at Hoxton, where he died of paralysis of the brain on 23rd September 1803.
It's all very dreadful, but back to the nursery rhymes. I'll start with one which in some subtle way creeped me out as a kid. In old nursery rhyme books, it was always accompanied by an illustration of a flying old woman costumed like an 18th century Mother Goose type. But I just saw her as a witch, and she was carrying a broom after all.
The song of the old woman that was tossed in a blanket. There was an old woman tossed in a blanket, 17 times as high as the moon, but where she was going no mortal could tell, for under her arm she carried a broom. Old woman, old woman, old woman, said I, whither I'll wither so high, to sweep the cobwebs from the sky, and I'll be with you by and by.
I'll be with you by and by? Well, do I want her to be with me? And will she just be there, standing outside my door, or in my room, or in the shadows? These were my thoughts at the time, as a child. Then there are plenty of rhymes which are just whimsical and odd.
Robin the Robin. Robin the Robin, the big-bellied hen, he ate more than 80 men. He ate a cow, he ate a calf, he ate a butcher and a half. He ate a church, he ate the steeple, he ate the priest and all the people.
And there's...
I had a little husband. I had a little husband no bigger than my thumb. I put him in a pint pot, and there I bade him drum. I bridled him and saddled him and sent him out of town. I gave him a pair of garters to garter up his hose, and a little silk handkerchief to wipe his snotty nose.
The nursery Parnassus contains a few real gems which are just especially absurd, like...
The Miraculous Guinea Pig. There was a little guinea pig who, being little, was not big. He always walked upon his feet, and never fasted when he'd eat. When from a place he ran away, he never at that place did stay. And while he ran, as I am told, he ne'er stood still for young or old. He often squeaked, and sometimes violent, and when he squeaked, he ne'er was silent. Though ne'er instructed by a cat, he knew a mouse was not a rat. One day, as I am certified, he took a whim and fairly died, and as I'm told by men of sense, he never has been living since.
And there are those which are just short and sweet.
The Song of the 3 Wise Men of Gotham, who went to sea in a bowl. 3 wise men of Gotham went to sea in a bowl, and if the bowl had been stronger, my song had been longer.
And one more, which is just a pleasantly confounding.
Song of the 3 Children. 3 children sliding on the ice upon a summer's day. As it fell out, they all fell in, the rest they ran away. Now had these children been at home or sliding on dry ground, 10,000 pounds to 1 penny, they'd had all not been drowned. You parents that have children dear, and also that have none, if you will have them safe abroad, pray keep them safe at home.
But what is most striking for modern readers is the casual cruelty of many of the rhymes. Here's one that, unsurprisingly, didn't make it into later collections.
The woodcock, the sparrow, and the little dog. I'll sing you a song, the days are long, the woodcock and the sparrow. The little dog, he has burnt his tail, and he must be hanged tomorrow.
The rhyme, See-saw Marjorie Daw, did make it into later collections as...
See-saw Marjorie Daw, Jackie shall have a new master. Jackie shall earn but a penny a day, because he can't work any faster.
But that's hardly the version Ritson included. His ran...
See-saw Marjorie Daw sold her old bed to lay on the straw. Was she not a nasty slut to sell her old bed to lay on the dirt?
Charming, as are the sentiments expressed in this untitled verse.
Oh, rare Harry Perry, when will you marry? When apples and pears are ripe. I'll come to your wedding without any bidding and lie with your bride all night.
And then there's this horrible little rhyme.
The milk pails. Betty's gone a-milking, mother, mother. Betty's gone a-milking, dainty fine mother of mine. Then you may go after daughter, daughter.
Don't repeat the doubled words, please.
Oh, okay. Then you may go after dainty fine daughter of mine. Buy me a pair of milk pails, mother. Where's the money to come from, daughter? Pawn my father's featherbed, mother. Where's your father to lay, daughter? Lay him in the maid's bed, mother. Where is the maid to lay, daughter? Lay her in the pigsty, mother. Where are the pigs to lay, daughter? Lay them at the stair-foot, mother. There they will be trod to death, daughter. Lay them by the water side, mother. There they will be drowned, daughter. Then take a rope and hang yourself, mother.
Well, that's some rather serious family dysfunction. The last group of poems I'd like to highlight are noteworthy for their survival once set to music, and unlike the case with the Frog and Mouse song, Ritson wrote these down before other compilers of ballads. The first we'll discuss is the basis for the song Lady Alice, which appears in James Child's 1860 collection, the English and Scottish popular ballads.
Lady Alice was sitting...
But Ritson's is a bit stripped down, or simplified, as it would be for toddlers, after all, which is kind of odd, as it's about doomed lovers. We don't know much about them, as it starts when one of them is already dead, as nursery rhymes do. Unlike the more detailed child ballad, Lady Alice, Ritson's characters are named Lady Anna and Giles Collins. In other versions, this becomes George Collins, or variations on that. Ritson's version runs,
Giles Collins, he said to his old mother, Mother, come bind up my head, and send to the parson of our parish, for tomorrow I shall be dead, dead, for tomorrow I shall be dead. His mother, she made him some water gruel, and stirred it round with a spoon. Giles Collins, he ate up his water gruel, and died before it was noon, and died before it was noon. Lady Anna was sitting at her window, mending her nightrobe and coif. She saw the very prettiest corpse she'd seen in all her life she'd seen in all her life. What bear ye there, ye 6 strong men, upon your shoulders so high? We bear the body of Giles Collins, who for love of you did die, who for love of you did die. Set him down, Lady Anna, she cried, on the grass that grows so green. Tomorrow before the clock strikes 10, my body shall lie by his, my body shall lie by his. Lady Anna was buried in the east, Giles Collins was buried in the west. There grew a lily from Giles Collins that touched Lady Anna's breast, that touched Lady Anna's breast. There blew a cold northeasterly wind and cut this lily in twain, which never there was seen before, and never will again, and never it will again.
The earlier part of the story, which we seem to be missing, is supplied in the George Collins version of the ballad, in which Collins is seduced by a mysterious female, either a fairy or a mermaid, who, being jealous of his mortal bride, curses him to death. A parallel story is the ballad of Clerk Colville, which sounds a bit like Collins, I suppose, which has been traced back to medieval Scandinavia and is widely distributed there. Anyway, along with Lady Anna's attraction to the
prettiest corpse,
what jumps out of this fragmentary tale is the morbid embrace of plants grown from lovers' graves. This motif goes back to Ovid's telling of the Roman myth of Baucis and Philemon, who, after death, are transformed into entwined trees. You can also find it in the 12th century tale of more doomed lovers, Tristan and Isolde, who likewise reach to each other after death in the form of trees sprouting from their graves. And it's found in plenty of British ballads, usually a graveyard rose and briar reaching for each other, as in Fair Margaret and Sweet William, which is discussed in our 2019 episode, The Undead Come Courting. The most famously, as it was a favorite of the 60s folk revival, this trope appears in Barbara Allen. Unlike the ill-fated groping lily in Gammer Gurton's tale, the rose and briar in Barbara Allen successfully unite, forming what's termed a true lover's knot, as in this early rendering by Vernon Dallard, which was released in 1927 by Sears Roebuck, of all things.
They grew till the old church wall and could not grow any higher. And there they tied in a true love knot the rose bush and the briar.
Well, pretty corpses reaching from the grave with floral appendages is certainly a bit morbid, but we can do better than that.
Never laugh when the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. First they wrap you in a bloody sheet and sling you down about 6 feet.
That's a favorite song and a favorite cover of the song. You've likely heard the hearse song in some Halloween playlist or other. This version from 1961 is sung by Terry Teen, an early rock and roll artist who later took up clowning and through the 1980s ran a professional association for clowns under the name Tobo the Clown. Little fun fact for you. Or you might know the hearse song as it was reprinted in the young adult classic Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark in 1981, with an attribution listed as unknown, which is basically correct. It wasn't written by Terry Teen or Tobo or any single person or clown. It's a folk song, one recorded in 1958 by the American poet and folk song collector Carl Sandburg.
Did you ever think, as the hearse rolls by, that some of these days you must poorly die? They'll take you away.
The first mention in history of this ditty, at least in something close to the present form, occurs during World War I, when its black humor was embraced by soldiers who'd seen military ambulances carting off their comrades. But there is a fragment of it, a pair of phrases, an idea at its core, that seems to be much, much older than World War I.
The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, the worms put pinochle on your snout.
It's a circuitous path, but that verse, with certain modifications, seems linked to a book published in 1796, the very first Gothic novel, The Monk, by Matthew Gregory Lewis, a book I've mentioned on more than one occasion, I believe. The lines are from a song, Alonso the Brave and Fair Imogene, a fictitious ballad quoted in full from a fictitious book of old Spanish ballads stumbled upon by one of the characters in Lewis's novel. In the faux ballad, the crusader Alonso is betrayed by his betrothed Imogene, who arranges to marry another while he is away. Sadly, Alonso is killed in the Crusades, but his ghost returns to the wedding to claim his bride. The guest, who makes his appearance in full armor, is at first not recognized, at least not until he lifts his visor and his rotting visage is revealed. The line from Lewis's pseudo-ballad runs,
The worms they creep in, the worms they crept out, and sported his eyes and his temples about.
This lurid and very Gothic ballad captured the popular imagination and gave birth to parodies, theatrical productions, and even an opera and ballet. But what about Gammer, Gurton's Garland? Let's get back to that. As it happens, Ritson mentions Lewis's ballad in a footnote to one of his poems, saying that a line in it was adopted into the popular modern ballad Alonso and Fair Imogene. The title of Ritson's poem with that line is
The Gay Lady That Went to Church.
But that title is largely forgotten, as it's the first line.
There was a lady all skin and bone,
which was taken as the title of a widely circulated ballad. Here's a snippet of Skin and Bones, sung in 1952 by Kentucky folk singer Jean Ritchie.
There was no woman all skin and bones.
This song, like the hearse song, has also gone on to be something trotted out around Halloween for children. As folk songs tend to change over time, the modern version has a few new details, but let's hear Ritson's original verses. Original here only meaning the first time they were set in print. It would have been much older than this 1784 publication. One note before hearing them, the archaic word style is used here for gait.
There was a lady all skin and bone. Sure such a lady was never known. It happened upon a certain day. This lady went to church to pray. When she came to the church stile, there she did rest a little while. When she came to the churchyard, there the bells so loud she heard. Oh, looking up, on looking down, she saw a dead man on the ground. And from his nose onto his chin, the worms crawled out, the worms crawled in. Then she unto the parson said, Shall I be so when I am dead? Oh yes, the parson said, You will be so when you are dead.
Some versions of the folk song Skin and Bones end with the same question posed to the parson and met by the answer,
Yes,
which is shouted by the singer or printed or annotated in a way indicating it's intended as a loud, startling punchline, an effect which is well suited to children's songs, ghost stories. Newer iterations add a verse about the old woman looking for a broom inside the church to sweep cobwebs from a spot in which she plans to sleep. In her search, she opens a closet, and the singer asks what she sees inside, answering the question with a loud
boo.
Ritson's text suggests a similar effect was already intended in the 18th century. The last three lines he provides are in their entirety.
Oh yes, the parson said, You will be so when you are dead. Here the lady screams,
suggesting that the one reading or reciting or singing should end their performance with a scream, which also seems a good way to end our show.
Timbo, Kimbo, Hero, Jero, King, Red Step, Follow with the Lollipop, Red Step, Penny, won't you time, the old